Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of We Found Adventure Live. I'm Maura.
And I'm Bobby.
And today we're here to talk about tents. One of our Instagram followers asked us a couple weeks ago. Sorry about that. Trying to figure out how to chat and do this at the same time. One of our Instagram followers, Diego, asked us what tent he should get for his family. And so today we're hoping to answer that question for him and for lots of people because this is a very common question that we get. The main thing you want to ask yourself when you're looking for a tent is, what are you going to be doing with your tent? Are you strictly going to be car camping? Are you interested in backpacking, canoe camping? If you're going to be like a super avid backpacker, our answer is going to be much different from, I want to go to a state park maybe once a summer and do some exploring. So that's the first question you have to ask yourself. You should also just think about if you've just had your first baby and you're thinking about, well, now we have 3 of us, how should we fit into a tent? Sorry, we're outside, so you're probably hearing that motorcycle go by. But you should think about, is this the only child that we're going to have? Are we going to have 2, 3, 4, however many? And try to think about the tent you want to last you for a long time, especially if it's going to be a large investment for you. You want to be sure that you're only doing it once rather than buying a new tent every single time a new baby comes along. So when we were looking for our first tent, we knew we wanted 2 kids. We knew we have a golden retriever who's an 80-pound dog. So we wanted a tent that we could buy once that would fit all of us really easily. So
and you'll notice we have more than one tent behind us because we found that for the different types of camping, you like having a specific tent for each one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're going to be doing a lot of camping, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're just going to do it like once or twice a summer, try to find a tent that will work for all the things you want to do.
Right. 1 instead of 4. And there are more that aren't up. So, and the other thing we always tell people is a tent can be a really big investment. Bobby wanted a $1,200 tent.
She wouldn't let me.
I told him no. I put my foot down. I thought it was a little ridiculous.
It only weighed 2 pounds. And would fit an army.
One day. Just not today. So Bobby does a lot of research when it comes to our gear. We're pricing out every option. We're looking at every website out there, trying to find the best deal. Right now, REI is having their big...
starts Friday, their Memorial Day sale.
Yeah.
So they're going to have 25% off some of the tents we'll talk about. And they also have a 20% off coupon code. So we've never paid full price for any of our tents.
No. And REI Garage Sale is another great place to look for big tents. We're going to be talking about our big REI Kingdom tent, and that is definitely one that you should look for in the scratch and dent section.
They always have like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with them. I think people use them once and either they're too big or they're just camping didn't go well or what have you. So look for them there because they're like half off then. Do you want to talk about our examples that we have about?
Yeah, let's do it. We'll get into it.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about our first tent, which is our massively amazing REI Kingdom 4. Yes. These get bigger. This seemed ridiculously large enough for us. This is the tent we got when Jack was 4 weeks old for our first camping trip as a family. Bobby likes it because he can stand up in it. It's 6 feet tall. And it's also it's so big that you can fit a pack and play in there, a regular size pack and play. And then there's room for 4 or 5 other people. There are 2 different rooms. One's technically a vestibule, so it's more screen than canvas. Or not canvas, but nylon.
And you can pull back. We don't have any of the rain covers on right now, just so you can get a better view of the tent. But the rain cover would cover that screen portion, but if it's getting hot, you can quickly unclip it, fold it back, and get some more ventilation. So that's great when your kids are taking a nap in the pack and play to get a bit more airflow through there.
The other thing I really like about this tent is it has a lot of storage options. So when you have little kids along, you have a lot of stuff along, and there's no lack of space in here. You're not going to be needing to worry about putting things in a vestibule outside, worrying about anything like that. Instead, you can keep it at your feet. There are a bunch of neat pockets along the divider to put things in, whether it's, you know, activities for the kids that they can grab out themselves. Sometimes I put like coloring books in there. You know, it's almost like their little toy center. We do take this tent to the Boundary Waters. It's large.
And it weighs 30 pounds.
Yeah, so it's
It's heavy.
We have a large canoe with a 1,000-pound capacity, so we can do that. And we are able to fit 5 of us in there easily, and we could fit probably 2 more kids in there.
I've slept 4 adults, 2 of us who are 6 feet tall, comfortably in it with lots of extra space.
Yeah, so it's a great tent. It's really ridiculously large. I can't believe they go bigger.
Yeah, so this is the 4. They have a 6 and an 8.
And I think we could get a garage attachment
they have
if we want it.
Lots of accessories for you to buy. But we keep it simple with just the base, and we find the 4 is more than enough room for us. Like we said, we bring friends along, and they can fit in it too, even with the pack and play.
Yeah. So we love our Kingdom, but if we don't want to go quite so big, we also have our half dome or quarter dome. I always say it wrong.
It's the Trail Dome 4.
The Trail Dome 4 from Kelty. And REI makes a really similar tent, so I always think this is an REI brand one, but it's not. This is Kelty. So in this one, it's a 4-person tent, and you can definitely sleep 4 in this. Easily a family of 4 could fit. A family of 5, you're starting to
Too tall.
get a little cramped.
But you know, different families are gonna have different levels of comfort with how close together they want.
I don't
to
like
sleep.
being touched,
So
I need my
we
space.
like a little bit more room. There's a family in Washington that hiked the Wonderland Trail a few years ago, and they had a family of 9 that was in a tent similar to this one. They were in a 4-person Kelty, and they had their family of 9, so 2 adults, 7 kids, and Jess, the mom, she was also pregnant at the time. So they all fit in there. So it just shows that, you know,
different strokes
just because it says 4-man doesn't mean you can't fit more people in there.
One thing I like about the Kelty, it has less storage than the Kingdom, obviously with pockets and things. There are 2 pockets on either side, really nice for cell phones, glasses, chapsticks, things that your kids might be asking for in the middle of the night. And it also has a really nice like hammock up here that's a little storage area. And what I like about the hammock is we can put a headlamp up there, and it kind of becomes a whole lantern for the tent, which is really nice.
And it weighs about 5 pounds. So we have our first backpacking trip, we took it with us, just because we weren't ready to invest in a lighter weight backpack yet. Or lighter weight tent. We're just working with what we got. 5 pounds with all the extra kid stuff is heavy for a backpacking tent, but it wasn't a long backpack in, so it was doable. So if you're just gonna start doing some easy backpacking or canoe camping, there's no reason, if you have, you know, people have a lot of these dome tents laying around, there's no reason that won't just work for you. You don't need to go in and invest a bunch of money in something special.
And these can be so cheap. You can find them at Aldi's, at Target. You know, they're not going to be Kelty brand or REI brand, but the off brands. And we hear great things about them from people.
Yeah, and even the REI brand ones they're between $100 and $200.
Yeah, so it's just not overly expensive like the $1,200 tent Bobby wanted.
You're gonna get it.
I'm still not over it.
So yeah, that's the Kelty Trail Dome 4.
Okay,
and it's kind of just an example of generic. So we don't have a lot of room here, so we're gonna move.
We're gonna
this
do
tent
a little
out.
set switching. We want you to be able to see our tent setups.
Oh, and in terms of, so those are very good car camping family tents. If you want more ideas for other ones you can get, you should check out Hike It Baby has a blog post. There's a link to it in the comments or in the post for this video. Hike It Baby reviewed 4 or 5 large family tents, so definitely check that out, as they have some other recommendations from Nemo, Big Agnes, some other brands. So now we're going to get into backpacking tents. And so when you get into backpacking tents, it's a lot more of an investment because you're paying for lighter weight materials and smarter design. Just try to make as much room in the tent as possible for the least amount of weight. And so we did a lot of research, and like Maura said, looked at big tents that were super lightweight, that were $1,200, all the way down to, you know, trying to squeeze into a 2-man tent, which we'll get into. What we settled on for our family was trying to find a balance between price, because we didn't want to pay too much. It was still expensive. freestanding was important to us. So a lot of backpacking tents that are really lightweight, you're going to use your trekking poles to set them up, and you're going to have them staked down. Whereas this tent here, the Big Agnes Copper Spur High Volume Ultralight 3, is freestanding. So there's no stakes in it right now, and it's holding itself up, which makes it really easy for us to pitch when we get to camp and we're all busy and hungry. I don't have to worry about finding the right spot to pitch the tent, so I can get all the stakes in the right spot.
And it's also nice because so much of our upper northern Minnesota landscape is rock. So a lot of times in the Boundary Waters, you're on a lot of rocks, and it's just hard to find a spot to put a tent stake in.
Yeah, so we went, Big Agnes makes a 2-person version of this tent, a 3-person, and a 4-person. They also have variations with larger vestibules. So we just got the standard one in the 3-person because we actually like measured how big the tents were and then laid out on the ground that space to figure out how much room we would need. If you have, an REI or something close by, I recommend going there and having them set up on the tents and lay in and see if it's comfortable. Because if you're just looking online, it's hard to tell how big is the tent really. So we found that the 4 of us, with Jack being 3 years old and Rowan being about 1, we could fit comfortably in the 3-man. In a couple of years, when the kids are bigger, we'll probably need to upgrade.
We did live in this for 2 weeks last summer. It did get long. It was very cozy by the end of a long trip. Mainly, Rowan was still a baby. She was only 9 months old when we did that. So you're very close.
Yeah. And we'll talk in a future video about our exact sleeping arrangements, but you can see here that we have 3 sleeping pads, and they fit perfectly across it. They're 3 X-Bed inflatable air mattresses, and so we can all squeeze in there, and basically I'm on half of one, Mora's on half of one, and the kids are flanking us on the outsides. And
we keep them separated.
So it works well. We'll see how it does this year as the kids are getting bigger, whether we need to upgrade. But I did look at a bunch of other tents that we didn't decide on for various reasons, and I wanted to just quickly run through them and those different options. So, like we were talking about, the Big Agnes Copper Spur 3, and the reason why it's called HVUI, the high volume, means that they gave it more vertical sides, so you have more space inside of them. That's really important because with that Kelty Trail Dome, measurement-wise, when we look at the width and height of it, we're like, this thing's huge. We have all this space. But then once I actually started getting stuff in there, I realized because the walls curve so much, you don't have very much space inside of it. So they designed this tent to have a lot of interior space. You can sit up in it and have room to move around. So it is $500. They're going to be on sale on REI this weekend for 25% off. So you can save some money that way. Another option is just other backpacking tents to consider for your family. And again, the Copper Spur 3 that's the 3-man version. If you've got a bigger family of 4 or 5 people, get the 4-person and you'll fit. MSR has a couple really great backpacking tents. So they have the MSR Carbon Reflex 3. A lot of the weight in the Big Agnes is from the poles, the tent poles. And so by having a carbon fiber pole system inside of it, they're able to shave the weight down to 38 ounces. But it also brings the price up to $599. This is a tent that I would love to have. It's a really great tent. It's a small company called Zpacks. And so they make a lot of ultralight backpacking gear. And so they make a 3-person tent called the Triplex. If you were following Ellie on the AT last year on their trip on the Appalachian Trail with their baby, this is the tent that they used. It isn't freestanding, so you can see in the picture here they have a trekking pole as their support. So that's how they're able to get the weight down to just 24 ounces, is that there's no poles with it. You use your trekking poles to set it up. But it means you need to be able to tie out and use stakes to keep your tent upright. So for us, between the price and it not being freestanding, we decided not to go with that one. Another small company that makes great tents is called Tarptent. They have the Hogback tent, which is their 4-person tent. You could get a family of 5 in there easily. It's a pretty decent price, $439 compared to those other tents, and it's got a lot of room inside of it. And I do believe it needs to be staked out. That's not entirely freestanding, but it does have its own poles. So there's this family in the UK and the Outdoors family on Instagram. Definitely check them out. They have amazing pictures. This is the family tent that they use, and so they've always got great pictures of this tent in amazing places over there. And then finally, the last one I want to talk about is a different type of tent. They're called mids, as in pyramid. And so these tents are really lightweight, but you'll see in the picture that he doesn't have a net, right, a bug net. And so you can get an interior net that goes inside of the pyramid. So you basically have to buy these two parts. So I priced it out at $610 with the net and the outer shell. And this is the one, this is the like heavier version of it, the 50-ounce version. You can get one that weighs about half as much for the $1,200 from Hyperlight Tents. So that's where that super expensive one gets. But it's 81 square feet inside. It's way bigger than all of these other tents we're looking at. So if you've got a big family, you can fit a ton of people in there. And also there are a lot of people that make their own pyramid tents. It's a pretty simple design if you're crafty and can sew. And so that's something you can look up YouTube videos on how people make their own. So that's another option.
Isn't this the one that's made from space fabric?
The Cuban fiber. So they make this is the sil nylon version, which is the cheaper one. The carbon fiber one brings the price up, but brings the weight down. Mark Larson calls out that Tarptent used to have a great Rainbow 3, but they quit making it. I've seen a few people with that tent. That's too bad they don't make it. It's definitely hard to find really big tents for families that are lightweight. You know, a lot of the backpacking tents you're going to find out there are 2-person or smaller, you know, solo tents. So
we keep trying to, like, whenever we meet reps from companies, we're always like, are you gonna make a family tent, or like, are you gonna make an ultralight kid carrier soon? Because it's definitely, backpacking with kids is challenging, and we're well aware of those challenges. And so whenever we meet people, we're always like sending emails to people like, hey, have you considered doing, you know, a pack that's not 7 pounds base weight? But it's still doable, and it's still a really fun way to get out with your kids. And it's so magical because you get that feeling of solitude with just your family, which is a really magical thing that you don't necessarily get when you're in a crowded state park campground or KOA.
Yeah, so those were some of the tents that we've looked at.
Do you want to talk about that?
We got more 2-persons. I just wanted to call out a lot of those ideas we got from our Facebook group, Backpacking with Kids, with babies and kids. And a lot of people will call out what's worked for them, what hasn't worked. And so sometimes we'll say, hey, we love the Big Agnes covers for 3, and then somebody else will be like, oh, we had it, we hate it. You know, different things work for different families.
Yeah.
So definitely do your research. We wanted to just kind of call out the different types of tents.
The other nice thing is, if you do buy a tent from REI, you do have that full year to decide if it's something that you like and you want to keep forever. And then you can, you can return it within that first year. I also wanted to call out that you've been seeing a lot of different sleeping pads in here, and you might be wondering about them. We're not actually going to talk about sleeping pads today. So we have a lot of them. I don't know if you've noticed, 3 tents worth. There might be more somewhere. But that's definitely a topic we want to cover because we know a lot of people are curious about sleeping pads.
And another future topic we'll cover is how we fit all of our backpacking stuff into our carriers.
Yeah.
So that's a fun one. We have a good time lapse of us trying to cram everything we have into 2 baby carriers.
If we didn't need to eat, like if there was no food involved,
it'd be set.
You'd be fine. It's the darn need to eat that
Gotta
weighs
bring
you
a
down.
fishing pole.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about one other side. So these have been all focused on kind of bigger families. So here's a little guy of our family.
This was our newlywed tent.
So this is a 2-person tent. When we first had Jack, you know, we bought the car camping tent. We knew we wanted a big one so that Laura would have room to sit and breastfeed.
Oh yeah, because chairs fit in there. Really nice.
That was the only way I got her to go camping. Was I need a chair in the tent. That was our criteria. And the pack and play because we wanted the safe sleep space. But then when we started going to the Boundary Waters with Jack, we didn't want to buy a new tent yet. So we just kept using what we'd always used. So you don't necessarily need to buy new gear to go camping with your baby. You can just use what you have. So this is a 2-person tent from Big Agnes. It's a Jackrabbit SL2. I don't believe they make it anymore. Their new lines are like the Fly Creek and the Copper Spur. But it's just, we're using it as a generic 2-person sleeping option. And so you might ask, this thing's tiny. You can barely fit an adult in here. How do you fit 2 adults and a baby? So what we found worked well for us is we would put 2 sleeping pads down, going vertically, and then we'd run one on the top horizontally. It was a little tight because I'm 6 feet tall, so my feet were hitting the edge, and Jack was right there at the top of my head. But we'd lay him in the middle of the tent to go to sleep, and then once he was asleep, we'd push him up into that top area.
Just make sure they're asleep.
And he was in a sleep sack, so he couldn't really flail his legs around and kick me in the head too much. And it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do it for a really long period of time.
But for a weekend trip, worked great.
Yeah, so definitely look at...
And I was pregnant at the time, too, actually.
Yes. So
I was 6 months pregnant with Rowan.
2.5
there
adults.
were technically 4 of us.
Yeah. So definitely check out what you already have and see if you can make it work, especially if you want to just try out camping a few times first, see if you like it. You know, we don't want anybody to go out there, spend a bunch of money on a tent, use it once, and then never use it again.
Another thing is you should always check out outdoor stores sometimes rent these. I believe REI rents tents. So that's another option where if you're not willing to invest in it quite yet, go ahead and see if your local outdoor retailer or REI, an outfitter, that you could rent a tent from. I know a lot of the outfitters up by the Boundary Waters are happy to rent you a tent. So that'd be another great way to spend no money, but you can kind of have an idea of how big you need. Because if they're like, well, what size do you need? You don't have that deer in the headlights look. You can say, well, there are 4 of us, and yeah, we know how we sleep.
We got a question from Susan. This is awesome. We know who to ask when we need to borrow a tent. I was just thinking when you were talking about that. Maybe. We're very particular.
Bobby is very particular. Susan, you can borrow a tent anytime.
And the last thing I wanted to talk about is ways to save money on your tents. So we talked about buying when on sale, using your dividend if you're buying from REI. Sorry, everything's so American focused for anybody who's not in America. But the other thing we do is, so when you're buying a tent, you usually buy like a ground cloth to protect the bottom of the tent. And they're usually $40 to $60 and really heavy. So a way that we've saved money and weight is using other materials that you can just find at like Home Depot. So one option is Tyvek, and so this is what houses are wrapped in. I actually didn't get this from Home Depot because you have to buy it in bulk from them. There's a guy on Amazon who sells them in tent sizes, basically.
He buys it in bulk and cuts it.
He's a smart man. So we have this for like car camping where the weight isn't as important because it is a bit heavier than the other option, which is polycrow, which is a fancy word for that stuff that you put over your windows in the winter to seal it up. It makes a great ground cloth and it is extremely lightweight.
It is extremely frustrating to deal with because this is what it looks like.
Well,
and usually we have it wrapped in a rubber band because
it's not the prettiest thing, but it works.
Time to fold it up. I mean, it's like a big garbage bag. So it's...
But it was $1.
It was $1.
And it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
And it protects our tent.
Kind of.
Well, awesome.
So that's our tents.
Does anybody have any questions about tents that we didn't talk about?
Let's see. I'm coming in close. Nope, we're good.
All right.
So to end out, we want to talk about our inspiration of the week. I'm sorry, I was checking my notes so I don't forget. Bobby mentioned Ellie on the AT a little earlier. So this is the Quirin family. And sorry guys if I'm mispronouncing your name. This family is amazing. Last year they hiked with their daughter Ellie the entire length of the AT, making her the youngest person ever to complete it. You can find them on Instagram at Dirtbag Baby.
The Dirtbag Baby, which I totally misspelled. I'm sorry guys. That's embarrassing.
We'll fix it.
The Dirt Baby. It's the Dirtbag Baby. Ignore that.
And now this year what they're doing is they're going to attempt biking the entire Continental Divide Trail all the way from Banff up in Canada down to the Mexican border. It's a 2,700 mile journey, so be sure to be following along with them on that. Ellie is so adorable. And
this is when she's a lot older now.
Yeah.
It's an old video.
So definitely check them out for some inspiration if you're thinking about doing an activity.
Ooh, we got a question. So Mark is asking any thoughts on the REI Passage 3. We picked up 2 for our AT through hike this summer, family of 5.
You're doing an AT through?
Awesome.
That's awesome, Mark.
I have not used that tent, so I don't have any tips, but let us know how it goes and we can include it.
Yes, please do. I'm really excited. So 5. That's it.
And that's the other thing is when your family gets big enough and your kids are a little bit older, thinking about splitting up, you know, Do you buy one tent and try to get everybody in there, or do you get two tents and have maybe the baby tent, like mom and baby, and then the older kids with dad? Or
dad and baby.
Mixing it up.
Mom with the older kids.
Yep. So we haven't gotten to that stage
or
yet.
like mom and dad and then babies.
That will be living
the dream.
Right there. And then our final... So sorry, Mark, for a poor answer.
Yeah, that was not a great answer. So our event that we want you to be following this week is Kirk Millhone is currently trying to set the new speed record for the canoeing the length of the Mississippi River. He's with his buddies Kevin and Nate, and they have a crew also following along with them to supply them as they go. They are attempting to canoe the entire length of the Mississippi, which is 2,320 miles, in only 18 days. That means that they have to average 16 miles per hour, basically 24 hours a day, in order to accomplish this. I think their plan, Bobby said, is to have 2 people paddling and 1 person sleeping.
And they'll rotate out.
And they'll rotate an hour at a time.
But I just got the news right before this that one of them had to drop out because his kid is sick.
Oh no!
So Nate is gone, and the other 2 are carrying on. Wow. So hopefully they can. I don't know. I would be so exhausted.
We're rooting for you, Kirk and Kevin. So we believe in you.
And there's a Minnesota connection. One of the guys lives.
Right here in Minnetonka.
Just down the street from us.
Yeah.
So it's been exciting to follow them too, just because of all the people that are helping them out as they go down the river. They had to get through a lock and dam in the middle of the night, and they had like the governor getting them connections to get the lock and dam open at that time. So there's been a lot of, what do you call it? It's not trail magic, river magic?
Yeah, river angels. Mark said that he and his wife are in one tent, and he's got 11, 12, and 15-year-old are in the other. So you are living the dream, Mark. You've made it through the wilderness, and now you're at the other end. No more diapers. Oh, tell us what that's like.
And your kids can carry stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Instead of you carrying the kids?
I'm so excited to hear about your trip. Mark, if you have an Instagram, you should shout it out to us so we can follow you, because we'd love to hear about your trip.
We'll share it out next episode, next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people can follow along.
All right. Well, that wraps up our show for the week. Yep. Next week, do we know what we're talking about?
We can make something up.
Next week,
May 23rd, 8 p.m. Hopefully we'll get the start right for once instead of messing it up like we always do. Sorry, we randomly went live for a minute earlier because Facebook just decided to put us live.
Luckily, I was alerted.
So I was thinking we could either talk about the backpacking, like packing all of our stuff into the carriers, or we could talk about sleep arrangements. I guess sleep arrangements would make the most sense.
Yeah, let's do sleep arrangements. We can talk sleeping pads and sleeping bags and sleep arrangements next week.
Yeah.
That'll be a big one. So yeah. Hope you have a good night, and I hope your babies sleep really, really well tonight, or your older children, for Mark.